Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for
Sure.
your time. Really appreciate it. School safety, some bills were signed today.
Yes.
And so I remember this was obviously going back from last year. This is a very big deal.
Yeah, Santa Fe shooting.
That's right. So talk to me about the importance of not only having more mental health services being offered to these youngsters, but training teachers to spot youngsters in need, and then hardening the schools too.
I've been to a lot of funerals of police officers, people killed in storms and disasters, too many in the last several years as Lieutenant Governor, with the governor very often. But the toughest, Jack, without question, was going to the memorial services for the students and the 2 substitute teachers that died at Santa Fe. And on the day I was there with the governor, on the day of the shooting, the media, we had a press conference, and the media asked us, what can you do? And the first thing that occurred to me 2 hours, 3 hours after the shooting was very clear to me. We needed to harden the infrastructure of our schools and make it more difficult for a student or a non-student to get in with a gun. This particular young man who walked in with a shotgun walked into the front door with it under his raincoat. Nobody stopped him. Walked right back and started shooting. It should not be that easy. There's nothing we can ever do through legislation to ever eliminate all crime or eliminate all acts of violence, but we can do more to keep our students as safe as they can. So my first comment that day was, we need metal detectors in the schools for the schools that want them. Not every school district is alike, not every school group or parent group is going to want them, but we need to pay for that or create a grant program for schools that want to do that. Number 2, we need to restrict the entrances. There are schools in Dallas that have 20, 30 entrances, big schools. Well, can you fortify all of them? Well, either you have to eliminate them and change your scheduling and get students to come in through fewer entrances. I'm sorry, but we live in a society today where we have to monitor who's coming in there. And of course, Dallas was actually at the forefront of putting metal detectors in many of their schools. And then the second thing was that many people don't know, the students that were killed that day were in 2 art classes. And they had an outdoor area where they could do outside artwork, spray paint, different things, a little courtyard. Well, there was a door to get out to those courtyards, and both of those doors were locked. They were not push-bar emergency doors like we're all used to in any building. And I said, I don't care what it takes. We're going to spend whatever it takes to be sure that no student is ever locked in a classroom again. It could be a fire, it could be a shooter, it could be any emergency. And so that was the first thing that I focused on. And my wife and I, not because we were trying to draw attention to ourselves, but I wanted to set up a model. So we provided 10 metal detectors, and a company here in Dallas, Garrett Metal Detectors, donated the other 10. And so we put those metal detectors into to the Santa Fe to the start of this school year, because I wanted other schools to see them. Because it was interesting, when the governor had his roundtables that he and I sat in after the shooting, there were lots of opinions. Some were strongly for teachers being armed, some were not. Some were strongly for more security officers. Almost everyone was for that, but they knew there was a cost to that. And where do you get we have a tough enough time hiring policemen. Where do we get, 4 or 5 security officers for 9,000 school campuses? I mean, we only have 80,000 law enforcement or so in the entire state, and if you put 4 or 5 in every school, it would be 36,000. Where do they come from? And some wanted the Marshall program. Some wanted the detectors, others didn't want them. But those parents of that school on that day said, we want metal detectors. And so we have set up, with the help of a company here that donated the other half and installing them. And they work very well. And so that's part of the infrastructure. On the mental health side, that's Senate Bill 10. So Senate Bill 11 was school safety, Senate Bill 10 was mental health care. We don't have enough trained child psychologists or psychiatrists, quite frankly, to fill the need. I mean, in the entire state, there just aren't that many licensed. So we are setting up a consortium working through our health-related schools and universities so that we can at least have teleconferencing or some type of connection. So if you as a teacher or you as a principal are concerned about a student, you have someone you can connect with. And so in total, we're spending about $250 million, big commitment, on infrastructure, mental health care, trainings, teachers who want to be trained to carry for schools that want to do that, setting up grant programs for metal detectors, buying doors that will open. So we're doing a lot, but I'm still concerned, every day about the potential of the next act of violence on a school campus. And so we're doing as much as we can, but it takes the whole community, it takes the whole school to be aware. it takes a total effort to protect our kids. So we did a lot, but I still always am concerned, of course.
Do you think more can be done in the next session? I mean, you think?
Well, I think that from a financial standpoint, we're going to spend whatever it takes. The money is not the issue. It's spending it right. You don't want to throw money at a problem. So I think what we did this time was really thought out from Jane Nelson's bill, Senate Bill 10 on the mental health care issue. And we want to be careful, by the way, that we don't tag or label students at an early age that may stay in their file forever. I mean, so we have to be judicious how we do that. But there are some telltale signs that we have to look for. One of the things we have to be better at, our teachers recognizing. We ask so much of our teachers. That's why I want to give every teacher a pay raise, and we were able to do that at the end of the session. Very important, because we ask them to do so much. The teacher should be there to teach you, not have to protect you. My wife was a long-time elementary school teacher. You know, you're a caregiver. You know, you hug the kids. Even though some people say, oh, you can't hug the kids anymore. You know, kids need hugs. But now we're asking our teachers to be armed, maybe. In certain, about 20% of our school districts now have armed teachers, and more are training them. So we're asking them to do all of this. But unfortunately, teachers are going to have to be monitoring social media. School districts. Sheriff Skinner in Collin County has a great program up here, and he can give you the details, but I don't know what's on the record or off the record in that, but they were able to flag through their Fusion Center some disturbing information on a social media, that they were able to directly call the superintendent of that school, who directly called the principal, and were able to at least maybe look at that issue. So it takes law enforcement, it takes parents, it takes teachers, it takes the school board, it takes everybody. And I can guarantee you money is not an issue when it comes to protecting our kids.
You brought up teacher salaries.
Yes.
And they are, and other employees of school districts are getting a raise.
Yes. Counselors, librarians, nurses, and teachers.
And with the focus on those with at least 5 years experience.
Going into their 6th year. And so, which is about 2/3. We have 350,000 teachers. About 240 to 50,000 have 6 or more years experience.
Do you want to do more than that the next session?
You bet. In fact, when I was education chair in 2013, I can't remember the testimony of the committee. I mean, what the hearing was about. But I asked this person testifying. I said, why are we not attracting more young people to leave college and become teachers? And he said, Mr. Chairman, the answer is very simple. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, women who went to college, for the most part, had two pathways of a career, nursing and teaching. The corporate sector was closed to them for the most part. Today, women, as should be, have an opportunity when they graduate from college to go into any field. And so when my wife graduated from college, it was mainly nursing and teaching. And she could do anything. Well, she didn't have those opportunities. Well, now women have them. So we have to compete financially to be sure that when our young people are coming out of college, that they don't turn down teaching because of the paycheck. Our average teacher starts about $47,000, $48,000, but they only get about $1,000 a year raise. So I want to lift the level of all teachers. At the end of the day, because we spent $6.5 billion on education, and which includes our property tax reduction for Robin Hood, and we spent another $5 billion in more property tax, and we'll talk about that. But this was all a part of it. So we're putting $2 billion towards teacher pay increases. So teachers entering their 6th year or more, on average, will get a total pay package, which will include their benefits for retirement and that, which are all expensive, about $4,200. Plus, for many schools, we're adding the month of July, where they want to voluntarily have another month of school for students who are behind, and that will employ teachers for another month. That will give them another big paycheck for those who want to do that. We're including incentive money like Dallas has for the program that they created, the ACE program, so that school districts that want to do that, or another program, and other bonus programs for teachers. So I want teachers to be able to make $65,000, $70,000, $75,000, $80,000 for our best teachers. And all teachers need to make more money. If we're going to attract, it's about money, Jack. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to support your family. So at the end of the day, I was very pleased. We fought hard for that. And for our retired teachers, which is important, because that sends a signal to our current teachers, we made our retirement fund, we reduced the debt on it by making it actuarially sound for the next 50 years. And each retired teacher is going to get a check on average of around $2,000, some more, some less, depending on their years, et cetera. So this was a good year for teachers. And moving forward, anytime we increase funding for schools, at least 30% of it must be spent directly on teachers so that we don't just stop where we are.
I remember our first conversation as the session started, and one of the things that you said that the lawmakers were really focused on and going to look at is all of the increases that they were going to spend this session would be in place to sustain this
Yes.
for future sessions.
Yes.
My conversation with Governor Abbott last week, that is the case.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Well, yeah, you don't want to do it for one time. It's like our tax cuts. Everything has to be maintained. Now, any economic disaster, you can never know what's in the future. Like in 2009, we had a big economic downturn. But even in that case, we're committed to continuing with these programs. I mean, I baked the money in for the teachers to be part of the formula so it always continues. It's not a one-time deal. They're going to get the raise, it's going to be maintained. And so everything we did, property tax reductions, everything is in the forever category. And we have to maintain a strong economy. We're very blessed in Texas. We have natural resources that help our economy, the oil and gas business, but we're a very diversified economy. We've been rated, again, just this week, #1 state in the country for small business and entrepreneurs. #1 in the country where CEOs of Fortune 500 companies look to relocate, or any company. 1,000 people a day are moving here. So we have to keep that economic engine strong. But if you don't have an educated workforce, then you don't have a future. And we have too many students who are falling behind. This was a big session for property tax reform, education reform, and teacher pay. And it's what Abbott and the speaker and myself said at the beginning of the session at a press conference, which was unprecedented. Never happened before, to my knowledge. The three of us said, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do. And it was about teamwork, the House, the Senate, the governor's office, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives and moderates, both chambers, and some people took some votes that they wouldn't ordinarily take because it was the grand bargain. You couldn't get tax relief without reforming the education finance. You couldn't get education finance reform without doing the tax relief. People who wanted to spend more for education in the past may have not voted for property tax cuts. People who wanted property tax cuts wouldn't have voted for education. And we made it all, it was 2 bills, Senate Bill 2, House Bill 3, but it was all tied together. And it's the most mentally draining exercise any of us ever took on. And I know a lot about education, the formulas, but no one's an expert. But when you're breaking down education formulas for 1,200 school districts and 9,000 plus campuses and 350,000 teachers and thousands of taxing entities and 254 counties and 1,000 cities, to try to come and put all that together, it took teamwork, and I'm proud of what everybody did.
One of the things that you and the governor and the speaker had attempted to do was have a tax swap to try to further buy down the property tax by increasing the state sales tax by a penny. Democrats and even some conservatives didn't like that.
Right.
So is this something where you try to go back next session to try to do, or do you just move on from here?
Well, it was interesting. What we actually looked at, and what's not really been reported, we looked at about 300 different items. I put together a work group made up of Republicans and Democrats, chaired by our finance chairman, Senator Nelson, to look at everything on the board. Where can we find money to further reduce property taxes? Because property taxes are choking our homeowners and our business owners. Where could we find the money? 1 penny gets us $5 billion. Now that's that gives each homeowner about a 10% cut on their school taxes. I mean, we have 7 million homeowners and millions of business property. So it takes a lot to do a lot, but we were looking to make the tax cuts as deep as we could, and a penny got us an extra $5 billion. The polling on that with Republicans and Democrat voters was off the chart. 60 to 75% supported a sales tax swap. They'd rather have, like, tourists who come here help pay for, we have a significant number of tourists that come here. Well, that sales tax would help pay for our property tax cuts. And we have all types of things in the state where that would help. At the end of the day, it was one of 300 things. We ended up not doing it. The Democrats, I actually had Democrats in the Senate that it never came to us because tax bills have to start in the House, so it never got to us. I think we had the votes to pass maybe a half a cent, maybe a full penny, but it didn't get there, and I think the public was fine with it. But here's the good news. We were able to find that $5 billion elsewhere. So, for example, the Supreme Court ruled that we can tax companies on the internet like Wayfair, And so that's going to generate about $600 million for us. So we put that towards that. We had some other pools of money that one of the 300 items that we looked at that we're going to be able to. That's why the final HB3 bill is about $11.5 billion. $5 billion of that is to reduce your school property taxes about 10%. But the biggest tax cuts, the biggest savings is Senate Bill 2. We are capping your city and county revenues at 3.5% plus growth if you're in a fast growth area like Dallas. So that might be an extra percent or 1.5%, maybe. So what that means, Jack, and we've capped schools at 2.5% growth, and that's about half your tax bill or more.
And it's capped for schools, but cities and counties, if the voters decide to increase it, it's up to voters.
Right, which is a powerful tool we've given the voters, because right now your property taxes can increase 10% on your home, unlimited on a second home or a rental home, unlimited on business property. And what we've done is we've taken the appraisal values out of the system that can be used as a weapon against you. You want your value of your property increase, so you sell it for more when you sell it. But you don't want to be taxed on it, and that's been the problem. So by limiting the cities, so I want to break this down as simply as I can for all of your viewers. If you own a home that's been going up 10% every year, 9 or 10 in the appraisal value and your taxes, now the most it can go up is 3.5% or 2.5% on your schools. Maybe a little growth factor in there, but it's going to average around, say, 3.5 total. So the delta, if you've been going up 9% a year, we've just saved you more than half of your future growth. That's thousands of dollars over time. And for business property, where their business property can go up 15, 20, 30% in a year, it's now everybody's 3.5% on city and counties, and schools at 2.5%. If a city comes to you and says, or a county, we need more money, then now at least you have a right to vote on that. In the past, you didn't have that right. You had to get a petition signed, you had to get so many signatures, no one's ever done it. Now they can't ask you for a tax increase without you having an automatic vote. And they better make a pretty darn good case, because the truth is we work our budget around population inflation, which is 3 to 4% a year on average, and that's about where our government should grow. We can't be growing 2 times your average pay raise, and not everyone gets a 3 or 4% raise every year. So it was unsustainable, and so moving forward, the biggest impact here, we're limiting the growth of your property taxes moving forward, and over time that's going to mount up to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for a homeowner over the life of a home, and much more for business property owners.
Wanted to ask you, some business groups were disappointed this session because cities like Dallas and Austin and San Antonio passed the ordinances requiring businesses in those cities to pay for sick leave. And
they need to stop that.
But the legislation that was, there was legislation there, and then the critics say it was changed at the last minute because the NDAs, the non-discrimination ordinances, wouldn't have been protected anymore that the cities had, and it didn't pass. And so they were disappointed. What happened?
Well, we passed it out of the Senate twice. We passed we passed it out once of the 3 major issues, and very narrow bills that had nothing to do with NDO ordinances. It was just dealing with, banning the box, work schedules, and sick leave pay. And we sent them over to the House, and we never got them back. So the whole issue on the NDOs, it wasn't about that. Some people tried to make that about the non-discrimination ordinance. Nothing to do with that.
So why was it taken out? Because there was a provision
well, it was never,
in there.
Some businesses, some liberal businesses, and some organizations insisted to make it a bill bigger than it was. They wanted to recreate the bathroom bill fight all over again. That's what they wanted to do. And I said, we're not going to have that fight again. We won on that issue last session. Clearly we won on the issue. The final bill didn't pass, but you don't see any more targets allowing men in ladies' rooms. You don't have schools insisting, like we had a few school districts, that boys and girls shower together. We weren't going down that road again. That issue is resolved. And there were some that wanted to make that an issue. And we said, we're not going to do that. That issue is resolved. And the public has spoken, and this is about telling cities they can't tell businesses what their sick leave policy is or anything else. And so the businesses put it in, some against our objections. They added it to the language, and we said that's going to kill the bill. So that's what happened.
Will you try again next session?
We'll try again next session. But look, the cities just need to stop this. we're growing in Texas. As I said, businesses are coming here every day. They love to come to Texas. No income tax, and by the way, we passed another bill to be sure we pretty much never will have an income tax in Texas because there was always a door open for that. We pretty much have shut that door. I would say we shut it 99.5% that there can never be an income tax in
Nailed
Texas.
it shut, it looks like.
Yeah, it's shut and pretty much bolted locked. But they're coming here, but they're not going to come to Dallas or Houston or Austin or San Antonio to our big businesses if the cities pass ordinances telling them how to run their business, which goes back to the other issue. Don't tell your businesses what their business policies are. San Antonio made a big mistake. They ran out Chick-fil-A out of the airport because they gave money to the Salvation Army. And the city council and the mayor said, we don't like who you gave money to. Well, they realize now they made a big mistake. And so we passed the Chick-fil-A bill that says, I don't care what your religion is, you're Christian, Jew, Muslim, I don't care what nonprofit you're giving your money to. I may not agree with you. But it's up to you, Jack, if you own your business, to support whoever you want. And cities need to stop doing this. And it's kind of a battle, quite frankly, in Texas, where our cities are pretty liberal, very liberal city councils, liberal mayors, and our state's run by pretty conservative folks. And so they just need to get out of business's business. Let them flourish.
Let me ask you about, on Monday, President Trump has called for tariffs to be imposed on all Mexican goods unless Mexico does more to stop the flow of immigrants. Where are you on that issue? Do you support the president's proposal, or are you like many other Republicans as far as tariffs? They don't like tariffs.
Right. Look, tariffs are a last resort issue. The president has used them effectively with China, with other countries. We have been giving away billions of dollars to other countries, billions, and unfair trade practices, hurting our farmers, hurting our manufacturers, hurting our steel makers, hurting our businesses in America. And he will prevail with China, I believe, in the end, and it will reset the deck forever about how our economy moves, and our economy will boom because of that. On this particular tariff, it's a different reason. The reason is Mexico is doing nothing to help secure the border. And so while I always worry about that tool, and we do a lot of trade with with Mexico, I understand why he did it. Mexico has to help, Jack, this issue. The numbers just came out this week. We apprehended over 140,000 people crossing the border. Now, that's from San Diego to Beaumont. About 60% of those are in Texas or more. That's 140,000, Jack. On average, in most years, we apprehend 400,000 for the whole year. We're going to be well over 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 million. We can't sustain this, Jack. We're losing our country. The cost of the taxpayers on this, for example, in our schools, we're going to spend over $60 billion this year in education. About 1 of every 5 students doesn't speak English or not proficient in English, about 18%. Almost 1 in 5. It cost us a lot of money. The kids coming in here from Central America are 2 and 3 grade levels behind. They show up at the school door. By law, we have to educate them. The Supreme Court said that. They show up at the school door, they're 16 years old. You can't put them in a 4th grade class. So you put them in an age-appropriate class. They're 2 and 3 years behind. We spend all this money. 2 years later, they walk out. Our emergency rooms are overrun. We have 100,000 gang members, is the estimate by our law enforcement, people here illegally, gang members.
In Texas?
In Texas, 100,000. That's their estimate. A lot of the crime you've seen here in Dallas, I don't know, this terrible increase in murders, I don't know how much of it is gang on gang and drug-related, but my guess is there's a fair amount of it. So the president is getting no help from the Democrats to secure this border, the same Democrats who supported Obama when he wanted to do those things, and we have to secure it. We need a fence from Brownsville at least to Laredo. We don't need it overall 1,200 miles. So I understand what the president's doing. I think Mexico will come to the table before it goes from 5 to 10%.
They're meeting today.
Yeah, but let me tell you what. We're going to pay for people say, what's going to cost us 5% more on everything we buy? Do you know how much it's costing Texas right now for having an open border, which is pretty much where we are? So there's a cost no matter what you do, and maybe this will bring them to the table. Just think about this. We have a 1,200-mile border with Mexico. Mexico has a much, much smaller border. I don't know the exact mile, much smaller, 200 miles or so, with Central America. That's where you stop them. Don't ever allow them to get into Mexico. I'm telling the Mexican president, if you don't work with us, if I'm the president, if you don't work with us and secure your border to stop the trains from coming and the 100,000 people in the caravans that are going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming from Cuba and the Middle East and China and Africa and South America, they're not coming from Mexico anymore. It's a very small percent. They're coming from around the world. Coming here with no job, no education in most cases, costing us a tremendous amount of money, impacting our labor market, particularly entry-level jobs. You have to do something. And Mexico, if you don't do it, because they can do it like that. Like that.
So you, if I hear you, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So if this is the tool,
if this
is the tool he needs to use to secure that border, we're paying it for one way or the other, and we're paying it in many other costs. And until you go to the table, this president has the courage to face down China. He's faced down NATO. Remember all this hue and cry? He's asking NATO for more money, or he's going to pull out of NATO. Guess what? They all stepped up to the plate, didn't they? And they started, because we've been footing the whole bill. China is now, their economy is really being impacted. Businesses are saying, you know what? We used to buy these goods from China. Now they're going up because of the tariffs. So we're going to buy them from Yugoslavia or not Yugoslavia, but Czechoslovakia or Romania or Vietnam or wherever we're going to buy them. Yugoslavia is in the past, but my point is, business will find. It may take them 4 or 5 months to find another provider, and there'll be some entrepreneur in Vietnam or some entrepreneur in Romania who will come up with that product and replace what China has been selling. We've been giving away our country, and this president has had the stamina and the nerve to stand up and say enough's enough. And when it comes to the border, Mexico should have helped us a long time, but they've done nothing to help us.
I did want to ask you one other question.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Poll came out yesterday by Quinnipiac of Texas.
Yes.
And it shows that President Trump's approval rating is below 50%. There was another poll, Morning Consult, showing he's almost at 50% at 49%. Right. You were his chairman, state chairman, back in 2016.
Plan to help him win again in Texas.
And so I want to know what you make of it, because this poll by Quinnipiac yesterday said that if Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee, he would beat Trump if the election were today. Trump was ahead of everybody else. But I'm curious what you think. Why do you think the president's numbers, at least in these polls, in these snapshots, appear to be soft?
Because the national media, primarily the national media, which is the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, and CNN, have been hammering him every day relentlessly. He's either obstructing justice, he's colluding with the Russians, all have been proven not to be true. Now they want to impeach him, the Democrats want to impeach him every day. He's never gotten a positive story. The first positive story I saw today was Acosta on CNN said he gave a good speech on D-Day. Thank goodness they recognized, the president for giving a good speech to our patriots who fought on on the beaches that day and died for freedom. Every day, Jack. You could be the best reporter at your station. I'm going to say you are. Okay? But if everyone every day said, Jack's a bum, and Jack did this and Jack did that, eventually, it's just, he's withstood more criticism than any president in history. Obama got criticism from the right, but nothing like this. And no other president has ever gotten this kind of criticism. And so that's part of why his numbers are down. Look, have you ever seen a story in the national media that praises the fact that unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in a half a century? That black unemployment's lowest it's been ever, Hispanic employment lowest it's been ever, more opportunities for women than ever, our military is stronger than ever, we are now respected in the world that we were not. Our economy's booming, the stock market is, if they say that, Jack, because they're all liberals who are on all those newspapers and networks I mentioned, if they say that, they're handing the election to him. So it doesn't matter how good of a job he does. They're ignoring all that, because if you say he's doing a good job, it's like, look, I have great friends in the Senate. I've got 31 senators, 19 Republicans, 13 Democrats. They're 12 Democrats. They're all great folks. But when it comes to election time, Democrats would like to see a Democrat, be lieutenant governor. Okay, I got it. So there's a limit what they can say. And the same thing for Greg Abbott or any elected official. So that's part of the politics. It's a two-party system. So they're never going to say anything great. And so but let me tell you what's going to happen when the election comes. And if Joe Biden is the nominee, Trump will crush him. just like he'll crush the other ones. Because Joe Biden, what's his plan? He's now moved so far to the left to attract the AOC, Bernie Sanders crazies on the left, the socialists. You know, he wants Medicare for all, which would bankrupt us, take all your doctors away, close down the healthcare system. He wants open borders. I mean, the new Green Deal, that's what he's now supporting. That'll never stand in Texas or mainstream America. I mean, they'll win California and they'll win New York and a few other liberal states, but I think Trump will win by more this time than ever. And if the Democrats in the House are so short-sighted that they impeach him, you know, they're going to lose Congress over it. So let Nancy Pelosi do whatever she wants to do. I hate to see the country go through this, but this will kill their party.
So your level of concern that the president...
Zero. He's going to win. And he'll carry Texas. It's because, and look, I always understand people have their disagreements on a style of any president. People didn't like a part of, when Reagan was president, people didn't like Reagan. You look back on him and he was a great president. The bottom line is performance. What do you have in your pocket at the end of the week to take home? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And the answer to almost every American is yes. Is your 401k higher? Yes. Do you feel safer with a strong military? Yes. Do you have a job? Yes. Do you support the president on securing the border? Yes, overwhelmingly. So people will go in there and they're going to vote. At the end of the day, it's local. What about me and my family and my job? African American votes that Republicans could hardly ever get. My prediction is the president will get the highest percent of African American voters than any Republican in history, because the African American community economically is doing better than it's ever done. And the Hispanic community the same way. So he's going to do fine.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, thank you so much. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.